All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have something to drink, so I'm going to drink it. And we're going to have another one of my philosophical questions, of which I found a list of 250. Just eyeballing the rum here. And this question is, are there things in life that are truly random, or is everything predetermined? Do we live in a static universe? Einstein believed that we live in a static universe despite there being solid evidence to the contrary. He said, "I refuse to believe God rolls dice." Einstein thought that every action was somehow predetermined. Stephen Hawking said not only does God roll dice, but he rolls dice where no one can see them. He believed the exact opposite. The truth is that life is probably not predetermined. There are trends, and things tend to move in that direction, but, it's one of those things that I remember in college, is I had a class where we talked about social dynamics, and we said that, people lie, and lying generally gives you an advantage in the short term, but you lose out in the long run, all right? Well, there have been politicians who have been lying for years, and they're still lying, and, nobody's called them on it. Moreover, I would have to ask, because this was not presented in the form of a scientific study, how do we test that? Yes, I can tell you from personal experience, people think knowledge is impressive until you get something wrong. You get one thing wrong, and suddenly everybody doubts you. Einstein is famous for writing a number of equations on the board, and the last one he gets wrong, and the class laughs at him. He turns around and says, "You know what's interesting here? None of you commented on the ones I got right. You are only interested in the one I got wrong." Social bias. Now, I could tell you there was a class I took in psychology where the teacher had us vote on 3 possibilities for the class. All right? I think it was one was that the class would have one single test at the end of the semester, or maybe just 3 tests or something like that. I think it was one test. It all came down to a paper, or it was basically a regular class with three tests, a midterm, a second midterm, and a final. Something like that. And, the professor had us all vote, and we voted. And, of course, the regular class is what won. And he already had the syllabus printed. This was in the book. This experiment. Of course, I would have to point out that he could have printed a syllabus for all 3 classes and simply had them sitting there. That's a possibility. But the truth is, the way we do classes tends to be the way people think classes should be done, and we don't differ from that. Yeah, there are a few people that say, hey, let's leave it up to one paper. I'm really good at papers. There are a few people who are like, only one test? Yeah, awesome. But the majority of people would prefer that they get tested, they get another regiment, they get tested, they get a 3rd regiment, or a 4th, whichever it is. It's been more than 10 years since I've been out of school. But, this is the basis that most human beings follow certain patterns, and that these patterns happen. There's such a thing in Hollywood as what's referred to as twin films, okay? This predates the concept of the mockbuster, which is a film designed to capitalize on another film. It was like Armageddon and Deep Impact were two films, both about meteors, in the same year. And basically what it was that the conditions were right for people to write these films. Two major studios randomly picked up the same type of a film, or some films of a very similar premise, just because that was the climate that made these films appropriate. There are better examples, like people adapting the same novel or people writing something on the same event in history. And I mean, there's always the Titan controversy, which before the Titanic sank, there was a book called, I think it was called The Titan. And, it's Titan, Titanic, they're very similar names. They're both about cruise liners. They both hit icebergs and sink. And they both have massive loss of life because of a lack of lifeboats. So, yeah. That's one thing about the world, is it's very strange at times. Okay? So, things like that do happen. Why? We don't know. But this would be evidence for a predetermined universe, because humans follow these patterns. But, I mean, if I were to take a coin and I keep flipping the coin, you never know if it's going to land on heads or tails. You can only give a probability. There's no probability that it's going to be the same thing twice. And I mean, even if you had a machine, they had a machine that flipped a coin the same time every time, and I believe they said it came up one side 51% of the time, but I mean, that's within the margin of error. I mean, look. The world is not predetermined. There are things that are at a certain point inevitable. But inevitability only goes so far. Okay? You look at an election. Okay, take any random election in history. There's always the possibility that somebody could slip in the shower, break their neck, and then one of the candidates is gone, right? Okay, that would be a random event. And, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. So you have to say no. No, there are things that are very close to inevitable. It is almost inevitable that at some point in my life, I will walk out my front door, put the key in my ignition, and start my car. Okay? It is entirely possible, right, that in, between now and the next time I go to do that, a truck could come barreling down my street, hit the back of my car, shear the back end off, and make it a total loss. That's a possibility. Okay? It's not likely to happen, but it is a possibility. So it's not inevitable that I will at some point leave my house, put the key in the ignition, and start my car. It is possible the next time I try to start my car has some sort of a catastrophic failure and the engine blows. It is possible that I could die, or something could happen. Someone could just be like, well, I really want that car, and offer me too much money to say no. There's always those possibilities. But those possibilities are slim. So there is a high probability, not a certainty, but a high probability that that's going to happen. That's the world we live in. It's not certain, it's not predetermined, but there are high levels of probability in certain situations. So, yeah, there you have it. Nothing is 100% predetermined. Everything is a level of probability. But, some things we're pretty sure about. I can't promise you the sun will rise tomorrow. but there is a high probability that it will. Is it possible an interdimensional pocket will open up and consume the sun? I don't know. I don't know that much about physics. But I mean, technically it's a non-zero possibility. Anyway, that's just my opinion on the subject. I'd love to hear yours down in the comments below. I, of course, am Richard. Hi everybody, I'm Danger Ducky, and this is the part of the video where I remind you to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm also giving time for there to be links to the next video and subscriptions. You should comment, like, and subscribe, because for every 1,000 subscribers, this channel will buy a bracelet from For Ocean, and that will pull a pound of trash out of the ocean. It's a big ocean, and there's a lot of trash there. We also buy medals from the Conqueror, and every one of those means that 5 trees are planted, so that we will have a cleaner world for you and me to live in. Danger Donkey says, be a good Samaritan, float like a butterfly, and comment, like, and subscribe!